in the comments real quick if you can see me, and then I'll begin. All right, well, just gonna give this one more second here. Probably gonna have to I think I'm prepared. Let's see. All right, can everybody see me okay? Let me know in the comments that you can see me and hear me, and then I'll begin the show. Got my laptop here tonight so I can see the comments. Hopefully this will work. All right, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that you guys can all see me okay. So I will just proceed. All right, so it's Saturday night. Hope you're having a great Saturday night. Welcome to the show. My name's Joe. This is the Idaho Prepper channel, and I'm excited to be here. I'm gonna do things a little bit differently tonight. I'm gonna basically go through the top 10 list that I have titled for the show, and then I'll probably at the end kind of go a little off script and get a little bit into kind of my backstory. So if you're interested in hearing a bit of the backstory of the Idaho Prepper, stay tuned for that. So it's just the number 10 category in this list goes a little deep. So if you're interested in that, you're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. So yeah, hope you're having a good weekend. It's a little crazy here today. We had a fire not too far from us. It was a pretty good sized fire. So at first I wasn't too worried about it. It started yesterday, and I wasn't too worried because we couldn't really see the smoke too much from where we were, and then and we couldn't smell the smoke, so wasn't too worried. And then by this morning it was pretty bad. The smoke was getting closer and you could definitely smell it in the air, but luckily this fire was actually really close to a major river, and they were able to access water directly from that river and put out the fire. So just kind of looking at the comments, making sure you guys can hear me. Very cool. All right, so Homestead Family Idaho is in the chat. All right, cool. So, I will start by saying this isn't just some top 10 list I put together just to, create a fancy thumbnail and get people to watch the show. I mean, these are things that I take very seriously, and it's stuff that I think it's very important that we do, and things that we should be stockpiling and gathering, because I know I definitely am. So I got my list here. So my feeling is kind of this, as far as when I say, SHTF imminent, I'm not really one of the people that subscribes to these sensational reasons why trigger SHTF. I'm kind of I usually just go from what I'm usually witnessing with my own eyes, what I'm experiencing around me, and I'm already seeing, and what I'm preparing for is what I'm already seeing, and that is just kind of an overall breakdown in just not only like our system and our government and everything, but I mean just everything, like our morality, just the way people are behaving, everything, and how that's translating into the breakdown and deterioration of products and services. So in that regard, that's what I'm seeing, and it seems to be happening relatively quickly these days. So definitely noticing for instance, as far as like a power outage, a lot of people would prepare for a power outage because of a cyber attack, like an attack on the power grid. It takes out the power grid, or like an EMP or a solar flare, right? That might take out our power grid and make it so that we have no power. I'm more of the belief that if that does happen, it's going to happen as a result of just poor management of the utilities, stuff that we're already seeing, which is just like a breakdown in management in all these different industries, and a breakdown in the systems that create the parts for these machines that run essentially our utilities. So, and it's just a culmination of all those things. That's what we're already seeing. It's just like I mean, and I know a lot of people have experienced, I've talked to a lot of people who are, number one, just having really bad experiences with this, with any type of service industry, whether it's a result of they just, they can't get to it. People are backed up. People are scheduled way behind because there's not enough labor there to fill the positions in order to get the jobs done. I mean, I'm definitely in that. I'm in that category as a painter. Like right now, I'm doing my jobs by myself because I can't find anybody reliable enough to help me. So as a result, my jobs get spread out further because I can't complete them as quickly. So that's what I'm noticing just in general overall. I mean, you're seeing it in the service industries, and I think that that's something that we're going to see become progressively worse as time goes on, especially with like back to the parts and components that make all of these different pieces of our infrastructure work. We're very dependent on this stuff. We don't make any of this stuff anymore. So if something breaks down and we need a part, we're relying on another country, and unfortunately, it's another country that we're not in very good relations with. So if there is some type of breakdown with our power, it's, in my opinion, it's going to be mostly as a result of that. So it's, it's real stuff. I mean, I think what happens is a lot of people will talk about these things, but then they contribute these sensational acts of like, well, you're going to lose power because a solar flare. And although that's possible, it's not probable. And what I'm, what I'm seeing is just that if that does, I think that's what happens is that we hear the warnings, but then when you hear somebody associate like, oh, it's going to happen as a result of like this crazy internet hack, then people don't take it seriously, and maybe they don't prepare for that thing. So as far as the power sources go, that means that it's probably a really good idea that you start looking into alternative energy, such as a generator. Excuse me real quick here. I'm just gonna click out of this thing real quick. My internet's been kind of slow. I mean, another thing, it's like another reason. Internet has been crazy on a lot of lives tonight. Has it really? Right when I just said like I'm having trouble here. Yeah, I mean, it's across the board. Like I was saying, I mean, I am experiencing like a huge drop off in my Wi-Fi all of a sudden. Like we're getting terrible service where we are, and I'm getting terrible service with my cell phone connections no matter where I am. All of a sudden things have been operating really slow. So we'll see. And it's just, I hear stories every day. Like my mother-in-law flew out back east for a funeral, and the amount of chaos that took place in their flight. And I could tell a few stories about this. People I know who've been traveling, using the airlines, and having like near death experiences with flying, with the aviation, where you have planes that all of a sudden just start nosediving. I mean, you were having these pilots that are coming in, and they don't know what they're doing. They're totally underqualified. And I mean, that's some crazy stuff. I mean, we're putting pilots in not because of their merit and their qualifications, but, you know, because of what they look like. And as a result, I mean, there's like some serious consequences. So, you know, it's a serious thing to take, or serious to, to take seriously. So, you know, get your generators, make sure that they're working, do some test runs. Obviously, like right now, we don't need them because it's sunny out, it's warm out. We're not in a huge demand. Like usually we start losing power in the wintertime when power lines go down. So far, I mean, the our electric, what do you call it? Like the our electric utility department here is pretty good. They usually have people that get out right on time. But again, even if you have the most qualified, responsive person, there's still other layers to that, such as, like I was saying, like parts and stuff that they run into, and you know, they just kind of have to throw their hands up and say sorry, you know, like I'm doing everything I can, but I'm waiting on this part. So just the nature of things. So get your generators, make sure they're functioning well. So as far as alternative power goes, so that's, you know, gasoline, batteries, propane if you need it. And it's kind of difficult for me. It's funny because I'm going through these lists and I'm thinking about my own unique situation. And I'm trying to keep in mind that, you know, that maybe some of you are listening to the show don't live, you know, 20 miles up into the backcountry, and you rely on like a wood stove for heat. So I'm kind of in a unique situation where my focus throughout the summer is usually just accumulating firewood and stuff like that. And then we have a big generator that runs off propane. It runs off gasoline. It's dual fuel, but the propane doesn't work nearly as well in the winter. So we end up relying on the gas. I think an EMP will be hit or miss depending on a location and where your equipment is located. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really that familiar with an EMP. I haven't really studied them that much, so I don't know exactly what the science is behind them. I know there's different. I know that obviously there's different levels of an EMP, like you're saying there. So, yeah, I mean, it's not to say that it's not something that you should probably prepare for, but that's just going into a whole nother area. So if you're preparing for a power outage as a result of an EMP, then you probably need to be making Faraday cages and stuff like that. But all right, so moving on. The next thing, and these aren't really in any particular order, but the next thing obviously is just going to be your food, and procuring your food, how you're getting it, obviously. So right now, well, what I was going to suggest, if you're out here and you can, if you have a hunting license, to maybe go ahead and get yourself a deer tag this year. Hello, Stay Survived. How you doing? Get yourself a deer tag if you have a hunting license. Put in for that, or elk tag, moose tag, whatever you think, whatever you have a big enough freezer for, and get it filled. You know, and then get your freezer filled. Getting a brochure. Okay, I'll read this one comment, and then I think what I'll do tonight is I will, once I'm done with the show, I'll kind of go through and probably read the comments at the end, because I notice I've been doing this. It's tempting for me. I want to read the comments, but it is a little distracting. But I'll read this one from, is it Gary Martinez or Jerry? I'm tired of getting approached for solar. We in Idaho go through 6 or more months without sun to charge a solar system. I shut down the salesman every time they come here. Yeah. Well, some areas get a lot more sun than we especially where we are, we especially don't get sun. We're like in a crevice. So our sun is very limited. And one of the main things that's keeping us from sun too is we have a bunch of trees because we're kind of below a hill. Like literally there's just two hills. And then the hill behind us that our house backs up to has trees. So I got to get those trees cut and try to bring in and capitalize on the little sun that we do get because it's crazy. I mean, if we just drive up the hill, I kind of wish our home was built up onto the hill behind our house, but whatever. Just this is how it was when we got the home. But I mean, just going up the hill, you get like at least an extra hour more of sunlight each day, and that's big. I mean, that means like a whole nother that's like a whole nother month of harvesting if you break it down. So yeah, back to the food thing. Fill those hunting tags and get your freezers packed. Um, get as much food as you think you'll need, and then double it. If you can, if you have the room for it, because I just think we're heading into there's so many things on the horizon that present major instability. I mean, not only are we in grave danger of just a financial collapse, but heading into this election season, and this is a bad one. I mean, they say every election season is bad, and they say that because it's true. It's that every election season just gets worse and worse. And this election season is no exception. I'm not going to get into that for obvious reasons, but I probably could. I will say I've mentioned this before that for whatever reason YouTube is getting a lot more laxed in what they're allowing to transmit on their platform. So it's a good thing in my opinion. But I'm still not gonna test it too far. I might put a separate channel for if I want to get deeper. But as far as food goes, I kind of put water into that, so it's just kind of you know what's going to keep us alive. Food, water, obviously, food and water is going to be on the list here. But so if where we are, our well is pretty shallow, so worst case, and we have a creek that runs through the property year round, even in the wintertime, unless it freezes. But even when it freezes, there's always still a little bit of water trickling through. So absolute worst case scenario, I can always extract water from our creek and then purify it with our purifiers. And I have a pretty big size gravity fed water filter, and I have some backup filters for it. And then I have multiple like filters like this, Sawyer. So a lot of those. So yeah, I mean, what I would suggest to people who might not have a creek, or you don't have a well that's bringing you constant water, to maybe think about building a water catchment system on your home. They're really not that difficult to do. It's really just consists of tapping into your downspout on your gutters, and then just feeding it into a couple 55-gallon drums. So you just put aside a weekend and like $100 for some 55-gallon drums. You can have that system, and you have a little bit of water to give you a little peace of mind in that area. So the other thing would be like buy a cistern tank. So I was shopping the cistern tanks today. You can get a pretty good size, like what is it? Like a 1,500-gallon polyethylene cistern tank for somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500. I mean, that's a lot of money, but I mean, it's a big tank. We're talking a huge tank. That's a ton of water, and you can get that filled. Somebody will come out and fill that tank for you for $100 or something. It's not much to fill those tanks. It could be more than that. Don't quote me on that. But I do know from people that have cistern tanks and they get them filled by trucks, they will tell you that like 95% of the charge is for the delivery. It's not really the water. Okay, so yeah, so moving on from food and water, ammo. So yeah, get some ammo, get your ammo, and just you don't have a lot of money, just buy it one box at a time. That's what I started doing that in like 2011, just one little box at a time, and just putting it away, one a week. And it adds up pretty quick. And especially now, I mean, think about how many ammo shortages we've been through and ammo scares. I mean, there were times where I was certain, like 100% certain, that like ammo was not coming back because it was so bad and things were so bad. I was thinking there's no way we're ever going to see ammo come back, and it came back, and the prices even went down. Not like back to where they were, but they came down a lot. I mean, I know in my area, there's a store, our Black Sheep Sporting Goods. You go in there and it's just like the whole front of the store is just pallets and pallets of ammo, and then just rows. I mean, just so much ammo. I'd hate to think what would happen if that place caught fire. It'd be terrible. But yeah, the Black Sheep here in our area is just, they have more ammo than you could ever imagine. So get it while it's readily available. Um, you know, as far as why I have, and if you don't have weapons, get your weapons. Obviously, I'm assuming that you have things to use this with. But if you don't, go ahead and get it. Just from merely like a defense, just from a defensive standpoint, and because that's pretty much all I see it. A lot of these, I hear a lot of people just in these channels, because I read comments all day, every day from my channel, and so many people just assume that we're going to get into this like ground war, like that American citizens, like we're all going to just be involved in some kind of crazy ground war. Which, I mean, again, it's like, I guess it's possible, but it's very unlikely. It's not so much the amount of ammo on hand, it's the price per people. Yeah, buying too much. See, here I am. I said I wouldn't read the comments, but you guys suck me in every time. So yeah, I really just have the ammo from merely like a just a defensive standpoint. I have no intention in getting involved and and thrusting myself into any kind of conflict, unless, I mean, it would, like, the circumstances would have to be extremely right, because the fact is, it's like most of who the television set is trying to convince me is my enemy is not my enemy. And I have no intention of going and doing battle with who the television set says I should. Obviously, if there's like a threat that comes here, of course I'm going to do everything in my power, you know what I mean, to defend my home and my family, obviously. But I'm not going to just be putting myself into some conflict that just benefits the banks and the people who are creating all these issues. That's for sure. So yeah, get that while the getting is good, I will say, because there is a lot of tension on the horizon. Whether it's you want to, the television's telling us it's these different countries, like they're just determined to make us believe that our enemies are thousands of miles and across the ocean. And yeah, these people are just everybody's just doing what's in their own interest. And at the end of the day, none of us really know what's going on. I mean, there's so much just deception and lie. You can't really trust anything that's being transmitted, especially over the television set, because so much of it has been proven to be false. So I stay away from. I don't listen to TV or anything like that. And I've heard so many false flag, like especially with like financial collapse, like this is it. The economy's collapsing tomorrow. Get your money out of the bank. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've had people in my family or whatever call me, tell me, screaming at me to take my money out of the bank, like tomorrow everything's going. And it's not to say like I'm not knocking it. Like I did it for a long time, but the fact is, it's like what we learned from that is we just don't know. I mean, we really just don't know. So it's not to say don't play it safe, but you got to be careful about. It's like that story, Never Cry Wolf. You don't want to just keep spooking people, spooking people, spooking people, and then when the time comes, everybody's spooked out, and then they're not listening anymore. So, um, make sure that before you go out and you start saying, "Get your money out of the bank," or making these huge proclamations, that you really know what you're talking about. And I mean, I remember during that last food, when we were going through those food shortages, and the what was it? The one thing where I was really convinced. I mean, the evidence just was very compelling, as far as like we were going to just see a total shutdown of like food coming in. Um, was, gosh, what was it, like 2 years ago? I'm not even sure, losing track of time, but it was like right after all the COVID stuff, and all the chicken farms were, suddenly like spontaneously combusting and burning down. And you had people that were in the industry making these videos saying, like, telling everybody, you need to stockpile now. I'm such and so, like such and such person. I've been in this industry for, 30 plus years. I've never seen anything like this. Um, and there were so many warnings like that. And I thought for sure, that that was it. And, and there was a little dip, but, things resumed, back to whatever, I mean, seemingly normal. But, I'll just go ahead and move on here. But one thing, and it kind of struck me today, and I was like realizing, and I put this as number 4 on the list. I don't hear anybody talking about it because people forgot this. Is fortifying your home, buying plywood, like getting plywood. I mean, remember how expensive your debit card is the first implant. Remember how so addicting to read these comments. Remember how expensive plywood became during all the riots, and how impossible it was to find like a half-inch piece of OSB was like $80 or whatever it is. Like the worst plywood you could possibly buy was like $80. But people needed it. So if you had, so I put that as number 4 on my list. If home business, you're still in the urban areas, for sure, get plywood, stockpile plywood, go to Home Depot, because it's cheap. I don't know what it's cost where you are, but at Home Depot where I am, half-inch OSB is $15 a sheet. So yes, hit the thumbs up. I was gonna say, and I usually wait until the end to make this suggestion, but if you haven't done so, hit the like hit the like button, because the like button is like is the biggest indicator for YouTube, their algorithm, that it sends them the message. It's the most important part for the algorithms, is to see that like button. It's more important than views and subscriptions and everything. So if you do that, it helps the channel a lot. So but yeah, moving on. So get plywood if you have a business. You think that, because man, I tell you, with everything it's happening, and if this person wins the election or that person wins the election or loses, I mean, you should just see like all hell break loose, and plywood is going to be of short supply, guaranteed. So get a couple sheets now and just put them under your eaves on the side of your house or in your garage or wherever you can. And then don't forget screws. You're going to need screws for that plywood. So that, back to fortifying, securing your home and business. That includes security cameras. Get security cameras. They're really easy to install. I'll probably, if you're, I'll go ahead and leave some links in the description for the security cameras that I use. I actually use a security camera that has both like Cat 5 and Wi-Fi receiving capabilities. So that way, if the Wi-Fi goes out or whatever, I still have that direct connection with, like, I have a direct line to it. So there's some pretty good, like, you'd be shocked at how good some of the cameras are out there right now. Some of the cheaper cameras. Like I got this one camera. It was like 24, how much was it? It was like under $30. And it does full 360. Like I can see 360 degrees up, down, side to side. I can communicate through it. I can hear it. It also is has it connects to my phone, so it'll send me alerts if there's movement. I can do perimeter. I can schedule perimeter scans during different parts of the day. It'll just kind of, scan through my whole property and see if it detects like any movement, and it'll send me. And then here's the key thing: is that they have SD cards in them, so you don't have to subscribe to a, like get a membership and subscribe to some service that you have to pay each month to have them monitor it for you. Because that's like what I've found with a lot of these different cameras, like whatchamacallit, like the ones that people put on their doorbells. Because I had one of those. Can't remember it now. I can't remember the name. It's totally escaping my mind. But they'd always try to make you sign up for their security service, and it was just, it didn't make any sense, because it was like, well, if somebody goes on my property, you're going to see what I'm going to see because it alerts my phone. So, I mean, I can call the police just like you can. So it didn't really make sense to have a security service if I had the same access, to my property and do the same thing they're going to do. And the SD card, because you have the SD card capability, it will record. My cameras will record up to like 2 weeks of footage, so I can. And then at the end of 2 weeks, it erases everything and then starts over again. But if something happens in that two weeks, I have, I can always go back and zoom in, zoom out, and get whatever information I need from that camera. So I've found some really good cameras out there. So I'll try to leave links in the description of this video when I'm done. But all right, so moving on. I mean, as far as fortifying your home, I mean, get your security cameras, locks, gates, fences, whatever alarms you need, door alarms, stuff like that. I think that's going to be a huge thing, especially if things devolve into some type of civil unrest because of the state, because of the election results. It's possible. So get that. My number 5 is money, currency. Obviously do whatever you can to just save some money, put some money aside, have cash. Don't have all your cash in the bank. I mean, have cash on hand in case of an emergency. I'm just going to go ahead and, I mean, whatever you can put aside is the better to do. I always make sure, because there's certain things throughout the year that I always want to make sure that I have money for. I always know that my car or my wife's car is going to have issues. And pallets on windows with sandbags. Yeah, it's a good idea. So I always put money aside for those things. It usually, last year was it last year? Yeah, last year was terrible. It was a terrible year for auto repair. And I still didn't even complete it, but I damn near rebuilt my entire truck last winter. I didn't, the mechanics did, so it was 10 times the amount of money. Still trying to recover from that, but I always put money aside for that kind of stuff. And then I always put money aside for Christmas presents. That's always a huge thing because that always sneaks up on people, and I pretty much got it like down, as to like how much, have this conversation with your spouse, like decide how much money you want to spend on each person. It's something my wife and I always do each year. And it really depends, like, okay, how much money are we spending on each other this year? It's always a fun conversation. Each year it gets a little less because we just need less. And then the kids get a little bit more. So I always take, how I do that is I do a job. I take, $1,000 or whatever out, put it in an envelope, put it in a safe, hide it, forget about it. And that method has served me well for a long time. So keep cash on hand, and as much as you can. And if you have trouble getting cash, sell some stuff. I mean, people always forget that. Like a lot of times we're just sitting, we're just by nature, we're such consumers. We consume a lot, and 90% of the stuff that we surround ourselves with, we don't even really need. And so, I mean, that's always a fun thing to do is I'll go around my house and just go, okay, what can I sell, just to make a little money. And it's amazing the amount of stuff and stuff that you wouldn't even think that would be worth anything. I mean, I remember I went through this junk drawer I had, and I had all these Zippo lighters like that people had given me throughout the years, and they're just meaningless Zippo lighters. You wouldn't believe the money I got for Zippo lighters on eBay. And they sold right away. It was like I just took a picture, quick little picture, little description, and it was like $50, $50, $80. Crazy. So yeah, you'd be surprised how much money you can make. So open up a little eBay account. It's free. They do charge you a lot on the seller fees. That's gotten ridiculous. So be wary of that. But yeah, put up some money aside, pay off your debt. And as far as precious metals go, I'm not a big precious metals guy. I do, just because I don't know. It's just all the information surrounding it just not that compelling. But I do have silver, and I've got into this lots of times before. But my silver just represents 3 years of property tax. That's how much silver I have, which actually, believe it or not, is not very much. It's not nearly as much as you would think. Property tax in Idaho, especially for the house that it's on, is very, very cheap. Okay, moving on. So number 6 is medical, first aid, stuff like that. So I put immunity booster items in there. So moringa. This is my favorite thing. I always plug this whenever I can. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I love my moringa. I take 3 a day, 6 a day, sometimes 6 a day if I remember. So it's 3 in the morning, 3 at night. And if I do that, I mean, I'm good to go. It just totally boosts my immunity. So yeah, get your medical supplies in order. Maybe step up your medical supplies. So I have if I can get it out of here. I have this stethoscope here. So get a stethoscope. I have these because my mom's a retired nurse, and she has a ton of this stuff. But she taught me how to take somebody's blood pressure. And then I have one of these, and this is a hard one to say, but it's a sphygmomanometer or something like that. Let's see. I wrote it down. What is this? What is this thing? Sphygmomanometer. Say that at all. I was gonna say it 10 times fast, but just say it once. Slow, you'll be struggling with it. So yeah, I mean, step up your medical supplies. I know I got this. This is my Jace antibiotic kit. So every antibiotic you could ever need for any type of infection. I just ordered some splints, and then I got what else? I got a oh yeah, I got a bunch of these compression bandages. These are really good, and I'll give you a little tip on where to get these, like crazy cheap. Other than Amazon, you can get them even cheaper, and this is the thing. I'll tell you guys this. A lot of people don't know this, but almost everything you see on Amazon is coming from the same place. And all a lot of people are doing is they're rebranding it, and that's it. So they're all buying it from either Alibaba or they're buying it from AliExpress. AliExpress is just like a offshoot of Alibaba, so where you can buy basically stuff that you would buy from Alibaba but in smaller quantities. And I think that it's not coming directly from China. Sometimes it is, but sometimes I know like AliExpress is like their US based place. But not that I'm plugging, Chinese goods here, but the unfortunate fact is, and this happens all the time, is people go on Amazon and they buy this stuff thinking that they're buying an American product, because that's how a lot of these sellers are marketing their stuff. They're buying it, they buy it from China, and then they brand it to make and give it some super Eurocentric name. And people buy it thinking that they just got some like Swedish made, piece of survival gear. And really, like, the only thing Swedish about the entire thing is the name. So you got to be careful just about that. But it's one of those things that, I mean, if you help it, you help it if you can. If you can afford to buy something in America, that are you have the choice, and it's like, okay, I could buy this one or this one. One's made in America, one's made in China. You can afford the American one, get it. But a lot of times it's like you don't even have the choice. So good luck trying to find, certain things, like good luck trying to find a two-way radio made in America. It's not gonna happen. So but back to my thing. So my tip, if you're looking for these compressed bandages, and it's the one thing that I'll say is totally safe from them, you can go on AliExpress and you can get these like in bulk, and they're like $1 a piece. Whereas like on Amazon, you'd be paying $4 or $5, and you'd just be giving it to somebody else. So, pro tip from somebody who wasted a lot of money trying to get an e-store business going. And I can tell you those things don't happen. Those things don't happen organically. So might be having a emergency outside. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna trudge through here. So let's see. So yeah, medical. Also prepare, get disinfecting supplies. I mentioned this in my last show I did. If there is like any type of grid down, in the sanitary department start going down, we're gonna end up in a very terrible situation if we don't have proper sanitation, proper disposal, waste disposal. Dysentery will spread rapidly. From that is going to be disinfectants like bleach and rubbing alcohol and stuff like that. So definitely make sure to get stuff like that, because remember the last epidemic we had, how difficult it was to find alcohol and Purell disinfecting stuff. So whether you believe in that or not, but it is important. I still use it every day, just when I'm touching stuff. You never know what's out there. So going through, that's pretty much it for the medical. Alternative communication. So, two-way radios, get some Baofeng radios, get them programmed, and then decide on a frequency to communicate on and get as many people on board as you can. Get neighbors involved, because you can pick these things up for, under $30. They're still really cheap. Just these 5-watt radios, and you can communicate, with up to, like, they say 5 miles, but it's more like 2 or 3 at best. But they're still good. They're still good radios. Plus, they operate as scanners, which is like one of the best features of these, in my opinion. Or just get a scanner. That was the next thing I was going to say. If you don't get a radio, just get some basic two-way radios, like these. You just see these, and these are cheap. You can get like 6 packs for under $50. That way, your family can communicate. And then just get yourself a scanner. Here, I'll turn the camera so you can see it, but a scanner like that one there. Hopefully you saw that. That scanner, it's been a good scanner, and it's super simple. Anybody can use it. It just has it just has a police button, a weather button, CB button. You can listen to fire and EMS, and then there's a private frequency, and then you can even listen to air radio traffic. So they're pretty cool. And I even get service way out where I live. So I'll leave in the link in the description for this United Bearcat scanner. It's a good little scanner. So, and then the other part of the communication is, build relationships with your neighbors, and with people in your community. Obviously, you want to try to team up with like-minded people. Not just get a lot of friends that are going to need to, exploit your preparedness, but people who can help you out. All right, so the next thing moving on here is just alternative forms of transportation. So bicycles, if we lose our transportation, not so much as a result, because I just see that becoming a struggle because of the parts and the way, like, it goes back to how I started out by saying, like, we're just seeing this breakdown and this deterioration overall in the service industries everywhere, automotive industries, and parts, getting the parts, stuff like that. Things are just not being made properly anymore. I mean, I talk to mechanics all the time, and that's what they tell me. They're like, all the vehicles that they have in their shop are all newer vehicles, almost all of them. And the parts for those vehicles take a long time to order. So something to keep in mind. If you have the money, get a secondary vehicle and get an old one. Like, do your research, figure out what vehicles are the easiest to repair and have parts that are the most readily available. I know, like, for me, I have an old Chevy truck, and yeah, there's downsides to having an older truck. Mainly, it's really the only down truck is that like, people are like, why are you having an older truck? You just not doing good business. Is am I having issues with my internet? Somebody let me know. I think I am. I'm wondering if that's what's going on right now. I think that's what's happening. Just had to kill a fly. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just gonna work through it. I think what's happening. Well, I don't know what's happening. It's probably the fire, because the tower that we get our internet from, is pretty close to the fire. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and trudge through it, because I'm almost to the end here. So yeah, alternative forms of transportation, whether that's like that, and also, just maintaining those vehicles. So stocking up on, if you can't, like parts that you know you might have to like replace, or just fluids. Like I'll always buy, if I had the money, um, oil, an extra, case of oil and filters for my wife and I's vehicle. So I kind of made it that way. So my wife's vehicle and my vehicle are the same. She drives a Tahoe. I drive a Chevy. Same motor, same everything. So the oil's all the same. The oil filter's all the same. Everything's the same. So I can do all the maintenance on it really fairly easy. Okay, so number 9, we're coming close to the end here. Number 9 is, a heat source. So again, and this kind of goes back to, if you lose power and you're somebody that lives out in the city and you rely on a furnace to heat your home, and like a lot of times is that what happens is people will get a generator for their house, but it's not powerful enough to run their furnace. A furnace, you know, requires like an enormous amount of power, and most generators aren't going to run a furnace. And so you're thinking like, oh, power goes, I'll just kick my generator. Well, your generator is just going to run your refrigerator and like a couple lights at best. It's not going to be, maybe, it's not going to be running your hot water heater. And if you're on a stick, it's not going to be running, all that stuff. You're going to need, if you want a generator, it's going to run all that. You're looking at a 12,000, 24K like generator to run that much stuff. Like what we have to do. We have to have two huge generators to run our property. And it still struggles. So, and that's minus the heat, because it got to a point when we're trying to figure it out. I'm like, the need, because it's like with generators, obviously the more power, the more expensive they are, the more powerful they are, the more watts they put out, the more expensive they are. And the difference between compared to a generator that ran everything, it was like 10 grand difference. I mean, so obviously we went with the cheaper option. But so if that's your case, if that's your situation, you're going to definitely want to consider looking into alternative ways of staying warm. Because I remember, like in Texas, that happened to a lot of people, and they ended up having to go into their cars and run their cars to keep, to keep warm, because all their power went out, and it was, freezing. So if you like, where they don't let you have a fireplace or a wood stove, um, I mean, I guess what you'd have to, and you had a big house to heat. Me, like I would probably, um, uh, designate a bedroom in the house, like a big, medium-sized bedroom in the house, insulate as the best I could, and then just put an electric heater in there that ran off the generator, so that way you're not. Hello, hello. Ah, shit. Can you guys see me? Okay. Am I still here? All right. I'm just gonna keep going. You're back. Okay, fine. Yeah, Homestead Family Idaho. Let me know what was just going on. Homestead Family Idaho is our moderator tonight. Okay, good. All right, so almost done here. So that's what I would do. Designate a room if if you don't have a wood stove, you live somewhere in an urban area. Designate a room. You can insulate it, isolate it off with either rigid insulation or even like wool blankets. You can tack them, to your windows, stuff like that, and then either run an electric heater, or a you can do the candle in the ceramic pot. Supposedly that actually works surprisingly well. So you can do that. But yeah, so that's pretty much that for that. So number 10, like I said, I told you I was gonna kind of go a little deep, but the number 10, what I said, the most important thing to probably do in Stockpile on is pray. Number 10, most important thing, pray, meditate, and get red pilled while you still can, and get organized, get organized, and attain as much information with these different social network platforms. There's a lot of people that are out there telling the truth, and we're hearing things that we haven't been able, that most people, the common person, has not had access to ever. We're in a very, very unique time for that reason, and it's just something I want to stress. Um, Take advantage of this time and get get as much information as you can. I realize there's a lot of crazy kooky stuff out there, and a lot of it really is. It's like distraction, like psyop stuff to kind of distract you from um from the things. But the fact is that like our founding fathers, they, it wasn't just by circumstance that they made freedom of speech the most important, the number one amendment. um because they understood that if the most vulnerable a citizen can be is an uninformed citizen. If you're uninformed, you don't know what's going on, you can't make sound decisions. And we became uninformed. We just did, like, people thought we would see, like, that the First Amendment, like, if we lost our First Amendment, it would be a lot more obvious, like that it would come in the form of somebody just physically coming in and shutting people down from talking. And that is happening. We see that happening now. But really what happened is that for the last 100 years, or forever, for as long as we've had, um, you know, when I think when communication went from books, literature, uh, and then into newspapers, when it started going into print, like into newspaper print, and then radio and television, is that those industries became heavily monopolized, and the information became extremely curtailed and very carefully. What's the word? I'd be using a lot of euphemisms in here, but there was just a lot of things that were, it was just very heavily curtailed. I'll say that. And a lot of information was omitted. There was a lot of truth, but there was a lot of, it was very selective in what they told you, and what they took out. And so here we are 20, in 20 years into to the millennium here, and we're having access to information and being told things that we just weren't told, that are true, that you can fact check it, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's something that happened and it's been documented, it's official. But like, it was just, we never heard about it because it never came through the television set or the radio, and we just assumed that, like, if there was something that we needed to know, that the people who were telling us through the airwaves would have told us. But they didn't, because they didn't want us to know, because that information would greatly impact their plan, shall we say. So that's what I'll say. I'll stress that. Get as much, go out there, get uncomfortable with the info that's available, and get informed. Get informed, because it's like, what they say, the truth will set you free, and the truth will set us free. So very important. It's more important the second. I always say this, I kind of sum it up this way. You want to know why the First Amendment is more important than the second? Because if you don't know what's going on, you don't know then you don't know who your enemies are. You don't know what the threat is, and but you have a firearm, like what good is that going to do if you've if you've just been totally psychologically subverted and you have no idea what's going on? You'll probably end up destroying your friends or your foe. Um, all right, moving on here. All right, so like I said, and it's like that saying. What did they say? Tough times, and we have tough times ahead. I'll tell you right now. I mean, we do have the tough times are ahead. Get your soul right, get your affairs in order. Um, they say tough times make strong men. Um, Strong men make good times make weak men, weak men make bad times, right? So we're in tough times, and a lot. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of weak men either die or become really tough, and that's what's going to happen. We're going to see it happen, um, and I think I was watching a show the other day, and they asked this guy, why he thought we were in this, in this place with our country where everything is just kind of deteriorating, like morality, um, the economy. Everybody always thinks like when they think of like good times, they think of like a strong economy. They think of like really opulent lifestyles. Like as Americans, we have all been programmed to believe that like good times just equates opulence, material, like a new car, lots of money, a nice house, brand new clothes. That's what we think of good times. Nobody's thinking about, their family, their health. You're just not thinking about the real things. And that's what happens when you have bad times, is that you start thinking about life more seriously. You start thinking about your mortality when things are terrible and you're going through it. You're thinking about God. You're thinking about the afterlife, what you've done in your life, and how important it is, and that if there is an afterlife, and that's why. And so when people are thinking about those things, they're thinking about those serious things. They make better decisions. They make better decisions about their life. They invest more carefully in their life. They're just not as impulsive to do things. You're moving slower when things are bad, which and you're taking more time to think about things. You're not just rushing out and spending money on something you don't need. You're really thinking about it, and you're making your decisions a lot more. You're being a lot more calculated in your thoughts when things are bad. And so that's what's happened. I think we've just had, the last century has just been, for the most part, it's been really good. Yeah, like we've had some bad times. The worst was probably the Great Depression, but it was before my time. But even the times that we've experienced, like 9/11, I mean, and our parents have experienced, like, overall, it was still like we healed and we became stronger. And people are fickle, and then we forget quickly what it was like. And so it changes a person, the way things are. So I'm just gonna so that's pretty much what I wanted to get into. I don't know how much I was thinking I might expand on that, but I just think that with that said, I'll say that we need to bring back morality, because the fact is, I don't want to be. This isn't really a lifestyle that, like, that is like the mark of somebody that's very, like, secure. I don't want to live this way. Like if things were good, I wouldn't be doing this if I hadn't experienced the things I've already experienced and seen the patterns I've already seen. I wouldn't be doing this stuff. I did this stuff as a result of, well, of actual experience and inquiry into what was going on around me. And that's why it was a direct response to what I had experienced in '09 during the financial collapse, and then what we've been experiencing as a country, just the instability and the downturn. So that's why I'm doing this stuff. I'm not doing it because I'm a paranoid person, or I think I'm just doing it because it's cool. It's just, fashionable, whatever. It's just like an in thing. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've been doing it out of necessity, because I genuinely believe that this is something that that we should all do, because this stuff can happen, and it did happen. Like I said, I mean, I literally found myself. I went through a financial collapse that put me in a situation where I had no food, I had nowhere to live. Personally, I mean, things were still relatively okay, and I had family or homes that I could go to. But as far as myself, I lost everything, and a lot of the people, even the people who were doing really well. Not that I was doing well, but I wasn't being really smart. But even the people who were being really smart with their money and playing it really safe, almost lost everything. So, and I think that's something that you're gonna see, is like the people who are gonna struggle with this the most, if there is like a major economic downturn, are the rich people. They are not gonna know how to handle life without money. They're going to have the toughest time. It's going to be a major adjustment for them. Um, so, and I remember pretty distinctly seeing some people who really thought they had it made, and their lives was just gravy. And I was watching those people. I mean, I could see the fear and despair and the total defeat in their eyes when they're just shaking their head like, I can't believe this is happening. People, like, it was really sad. There was a few people I knew, like older people, that were just about to retire, and they lost everything in the stock market. Poor people already know. Yeah. So, um, you know, that's that. I mean, I think we need, like, morality will come back to this country, and I guess that's probably the cycle that our world, if you read the Bible and you read ancient history, you'll know that this is nothing new. You'll know that this is nothing new. This is something that happens in time, and we become societies become very degenerate, and they become just very drunk and materialistic, and the morality suffers as a result. And when the morality suffers, the whole society suffers. And what happens is the societies become unsafe, and because there's no morality, and because they're unsafe, nobody wants to invest. You're not going to invest into something that you're insecure about, right? You're not going to have kids. Definitely not going to be putting money. That's why you see these bad neighborhoods. These bad neighborhoods is like, and it's like a vicious cycle. I mean, they're poor. They're poor because they're violent. You can't. Nobody's going to invest in an area that they're terrified to live in, and so they move. So until morality comes back and we start bringing criminals to justice, where they should be, and we can we can start guaranteeing the citizens of this country security and safety. I mean, it's going to be a freaking gold rush when that happens. If we just have somebody that steps in and says, I'm bringing morality and order back, I mean, it's just going to be great. But in order to do that, it has to be a morality that is founded in religion. Otherwise, it's just subjective, and and it is a kind of an uncomfortable subject. I'm not going to go too far into it, but that is what it has to be. I mean, the religion, the text, is what gives it, is what binds the morality to things. I know that people can be good without God, but it's like a friend of mine used to say. He'd always say, you know, it's easy to have, like, he'd always call them wooden if gods, like these people that would always have these really um, just soft gods, you know. Not to knock religion, but it was like people would get these like Buddhist gods, and the gods that just basically didn't require a lot of like sacrifice, not a lot of nothing like that. But anyways, he'd always say, yeah, you know, your wooden if god, your wooden if god. He called it a wooden if god because it was like people who like believed in fairies and stuff, and their gods were like the like the earth and the air and the water. And he's like, trust me, like when you're kicking heroin in an 8x10 cell, you are going to be, and you're in the fetal position, screaming in pain. You're not going to be praying to a wooden if god. He's like, you're going to be praying to a real god, and it's going to be big and it's going to be huge. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that God come back into the picture, you know, something that like a God and a morality that is worth fighting for, a morality that is bound by something that supersedes us as people, a morality that is worth fighting for and dying for, you know, not just some morality that's like, nah, you know, just subjective. And how bad things have to get before we bring back a morality like that, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. I had a it's not really a debate, but I had a small discussion with like a pastor once about that. Like, can somebody achieve like spiritual, like religiousness and like true happiness and spiritual contentment without suffering, like without having to go through hell? And he was like, yeah, I believe so. And there's a part of me that really wants to believe that because I have children. I don't want my children to go through hell so that they can have a good life. But at the same time, I know that was my path. And I honestly could not tell you, I don't know how I would have ever got to where I got without having to literally go through hell first. And I had to go through an immeasurable amount of suffering to get to where I'm at now. And I'm extremely grateful. I mean, I went through a period, it's getting kind of late in the show, so I won't go too into it, but just to sum it up, I went through one period of my life. It lasted about 5 or 6 years. And it was so horrible. It was like one tragedy after another. And it just boom, 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 and it wouldn't stop. That I was convinced, I'm still convinced to this day, like I was going through, I had some curse or something. It was like some crazy curse. And I was like looking back, I was so convinced that it was a curse that I was going like back through my life trying to figure out where, you know, where the curse may have come from so that I could like, you know, get it off of me. And there were like two things that had happened prior to like the this period of my life. One was, I remember, and this was the main thing, I went to this fortune teller, and I'd never gone to fortune tellers before, but I went to a fortune teller with a friend of mine at the time, and we had our fortunes read. And I'll never forget, the fortune teller told me, you know, and she actually told me some things that, you know, turned out to be true, but she said, don't tell anybody what I've told you because you'll have bad luck. It was something along those lines, like, keep this to yourself. If you tell anybody, you're going to have bad luck, essentially. That's what she said. And that's kind of like the kickoff. Like, things started going bad from that point on. So it was either that or it had just so happened around that same time I had bought a house, um, and it was kind of a fixer upper. When I bought the home, I went in to the house with the realtor, and it was dark, and the people were still living in the house, and it was dark in the house. And I remember seeing the wife or whoever, the lady, was sitting on the chair, and she didn't even look like, she had this look of just total depression, like something terrible had happened, and like there was just not a good energy in the house. And I think the realtor had told me, he said, yeah, these people are kind of forced to sell because the husband had an accident where he broke, like he broke his neck or something, and he wasn't able to work, and so as a result they weren't able to afford the house, so they were forced to sell. So I'm going into a house, so I'm like, whatever, I buy this house, and I'm going to a house where just this whole family, there was a family that was there before who had just been devastated. And so I buy the house. I remember the first night, escrow closes, I get in the first night, I get the keys, I go in the house, and I'm just really excited to kind of start working on the house and getting it ready, getting all fixed up. So I pick this back room, and I swear, like, this is what happened. So I go to the back room of this house, and it's like, I'm just telling this story like I'm starting to get goosebumps because it's crazy, man. I picked the back room. And then, like, the more I think about this, I'm telling this story, it's kind of nuts. Because it was the first thing I picked. Something like led me to the very, like, I will start here. I went to the very back of the house, and I went to the back wall of the back of the house, and there was wallpaper on the wall. And I thought, okay, for tonight's project, I'm going to tear the wallpaper down on this wall. So the very first thing I have to do is remove switch plates, right? I'm going to remove the plug plates so I can pull the wallpaper off of this wall. So the very first thing I do is pull a plug plate off a wall. And in this receptacle, in this plug, there's a folded up piece of paper, a note. And I pulled it as a piece of paper with a whole thing written on it. I undo this piece of paper that I found stuffed in this wall cavity from this plug, and I start reading it, and it was a page from some teenage girl that had lived in that room, and she was writing like a suicide letter, like it was a suicide letter, and about all this stuff that she had been going through in school, and like people had been making fun of her, and it was like terrible things that had happened. So I'm like, oh my God, like this house is cursed. This home is cursed. And right then I remember this feeling came over me, like, as you could imagine, like total darkness. Like, I'm in this poor teen. I don't know if she committed suicide. I don't know if it was like the daughter from the last people or the first people who lived there. There was no date on it. There was no date on the note, and I think I think I just stopped working from that point on. I don't think I did much, but anyways, that kicked off, that, like I said, a 5 or 6 year just downturn in your life. It was just like you couldn't imagine. It was just nothing. Everything that I did just went from bad to worse to horrible to just unimaginable, and it wouldn't stop. And so that was in that so that period of time. It started in 2005, and it, like I said, and it ended in about 2011, which is when I started prepping, because the last thing that happened was the economy tanked, and I lost everything. And I remember driving away from that house because I had lost to foreclosure or whatever. That's another story. And I remember feeling this, there was like, and this is why I think maybe the house had more to do with it, because I remember it was the first time in 6 years that I'd felt like relief. I remember driving away and thinking, I'm driving away like I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and like just years of my life, and my credit is destroyed, and I have no money, and I don't know even where I'm going. I have, you know, I was in debt to the IRS. I mean, it was terrible, and but I felt good because I was driving away. It was like this, you know, it was just the whatever. It was like leaving this curse. I was almost like tempted to go back and like knock on the door to the people who bought that house after I left, just to make sure everything was okay. If they were going through anything terrible, I was going to tell them, you need to get out of the house. I think it was like built on a Indian burial ground or something. But anyways, yeah, I got a lot of crazy stories like that. Almost even crazier than that. Pretty much crazier. Yeah, I got some crazy stories, especially when I was working. For the I worked for. I won't go into it, but I have some crazy stories, and maybe I'll save that for another live show. Because these are kind of things I can't really do like a video on, because I'm a prepper channel. So, but I have a lot of stories that really don't pertain too much to prepping, and I think they'd be somewhat entertaining, and so I'll try to tell some of those stories like in my live feeds and figure out a way to kind of tie them in. But I have some crazy stories from when I was working in San Francisco. I'll just say that, for very wealthy, powerful people. Working for them, not working with them, just painting their homes. But the sort of things you see as a painter, you know, as just a worker, you see crazy stuff. So I think that'll about do it. Again, thanks to everybody who joined me. Hopefully, I don't know if the internet's still working or not. I'm seeing some comments go through, but they don't seem to be pertaining to anything that I'm saying right now. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a live feed that is just going to have to show that people watch later. But hopefully the live stream is okay. I know I'm looking at my computer here where I'm looking at everything. You guys, people are saying good night, but if you guys can still hear me, let me know in the chats. I'm not sure, because I can see myself fine on my camera here, but on my computer, it's just loading. But I'm good. That's shocking. Wow. Okay. Well, hey, thank you for joining me tonight. I'll just kind of go through here, everybody in the chat that made this possible, if I can. Oops. But I'll just go ahead and the people that I can see. Teresa Buchanan, thank you. Nicholas Campbell, still here. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, the internet is so bad right now. Is this gonna work? Homestead Family Idaho, thank you for moderating the chat. There's a lot of people here. Oh, now it's working. Gary Martinez, Parsimonious Ken, High Desert Drew. I'm going to read your comments later because it'd probably take too long. Cigar Prepper, Thunderbird, Thunderbird, right? Oh yeah, Thunderbird. Jay Great. Who else? One of these days I'll get this thing functioning a little smoother here. Kind of looks like, I think I got everybody. I think I got everybody. Anyways, if I missed you, thanks for showing up. Thanks for joining me tonight. I didn't even finish my coffee, which is crazy, or my cookie. This Idaho Prepper brought me a cookie. I didn't even finish it. I only took like a bite out of it. But like I said, thanks for joining me. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. hit the like button, because it's like the most important part of the algorithm. It's what helps my channel out the most, from what I hear. I don't know. And if you haven't done so, if you like these live streams, go ahead and hit the notification bell, and that way you can be notified when I go live every Saturday night. That's what I'm going to be shooting for, is every Saturday night. So if you're interested in that, hit the notification bell. And that's about it. So until the next one, you guys, stay prepared.